If I look back at the biggest turning point in my life, almost none of them made logical sense. My move to the Netherlands and precisely what city I went to, my move to Australia, the Sahara project, even the way I've related to the surf, whether it's waking up, not even looking outside to see there's wind or anything and knowing exactly where to go to find a wave, or being in the surf and having counted the sets and the time between sets and feeling like there's a wave coming, a rogue set coming, paddling out, and sure enough, here it comes and catching the best waves. Some of the biggest shift that happened in my life happened because I listened to this kind of quiet voice inside me. That soft knowing, that gentle pull, that sense that you have to listen, but it's a loving way of asking you to listen. It's not a violent way. It's not harsh. It's not telling you if you don't do it, something horrible is going to happen. It's not telling you should or you must. It's just an idea that pops up that if you don't pay attention, feels fleeting and unimportant. Every time I listened and I followed that little nudge, that pull, or however it showed up, it's led me to the most amazing things. And it's led me to a way of opening to life and to life opening to me in ways that if I had actually intellectualized it, I would never have got there. It's always been bigger than what I could have expected. And that's the thing, intuition. That's what I'm talking about. It's something that's very quiet, especially when you're not used to training it, not used to listening to it. And especially compared to survival, to that voice inside you that's trying to keep you safe, your ego, your mind, that are working so hard to make sure that you stay in the right place, that nothing out of the ordinary happens, everything is controlled. Intuition is almost the opposite. It gives you ideas that honestly, at least in my case, when they show up, I actually think this is crazy. Now I know better. And what I found as well is that for most people, just like it was the case for me, they've forgotten how to listen to that very gentle, quiet voice that is intuition underneath all the noise of what they're supposed to be doing, of what's acceptable, of what's safe and what's normal, what their routine dictates. Underneath all of that, there's intuition. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. The best way to figure out what is that voice that is intuition in comparison to any other voice, especially your mind, is to look at the quality of it. Intuition is very gentle. It is calm. It is soft and also persistent. It will keep coming up, but in a way that doesn't feel like it's nudging you too hard. It's really just a nudge. It never screams. Intuition is always just what if you do this? What about doing that? Or just an idea that pops up. So for me, it's like, you could walk to Mali from Tunisia. After that, I had to put my mind into it, but that was the first thing. And it sounds very gentle. It's just very subtle. And when you listen to your intuition, very often fear comes afterwards, especially when your intuition is leading you to big changes. And so it's normal that you have fear afterwards because, of course, change is scary. Change is getting out of what you know is safe or just what you know. Intuition is not dramatic, even if sometimes it leads you to drastic changes in your life. The way intuition shows up, the quality of the voice of intuition is always very supportive and gentle because intuition comes from your soul, your spirit, and it comes through your heart, as opposed to your mind that is here to protect you, that is here to show you the limitations, that is here to make sure that you're safe. And that can tell you things like, you should do this, or don't do that, you're going to die, or this is dangerous. And that's just your mind. It's a very different quality. And because we're so used to using our mind, our society is a very intellectual society. We've trained how to listen to our mind, but we haven't trained how to quiet our mind. So our mind is often very loud, and that's what we hear the most. Whereas intuition, because it is such a gentle voice, and because we're not used to listening to it, we might not hear it. Your mind would rather you stay in the situation it knows than in another situation it doesn't know that potentially could be better for you. But your intuition comes from the place, that inner knowing, that knows best, that leads you to your best life. And so it's very important to learn to listen to that. And it can be very little things too. It can be just, what if I turn left here? And then you bump into a friend or someone that you need to talk to. What if I have a feeling that I should not go to that shop? And then you ended up going and it's closed. It can be very little subtle things like that, but it can also be big things like, hey, I feel like moving to a new country, or I think I need to leave this relationship, or the thought that maybe there's this project that could be interesting for you, or the idea that, hey, maybe I need to change career. Maybe I need to say yes to this or no to this. It just comes in many different ways. But the quality of it is what you need to pay attention to and to start attuning yourself to so that you can hear that next step. You can hear that guidance. The thing is, intuition is always there and we can tap into it at any time because it is a connection to our deeper self. It is always present. And so the exercise is to learn to recognize that it's here, to hear it when it actually tells you something, because otherwise, tell you from experience, you will probably get stopped in your track so that you can be forced to hear it. But if intuition is so natural to us, it's always present, then why do so many people struggle to hear it? Now, I've already touched on the fact that, sure, there's this training that you need to do to be able to tune down your mind and tune up your intuition. But there's also the question of trust. Very often, people lack trust in themselves. When we're kids, our intuition is a lot louder. We feel things deeply and we kind of know more naturally. But over time, because we are taught not to listen to that kind of guidance, but to be more logical, and because we might go through certain experiences that make us not believe in ourselves anymore, that makes us feel like we are inadequate, that makes us feel like we might not be good enough, or whatever it is, then we start doubting ourselves, and we start doubting the voice inside us, that quiet, gentle inner knowing. We're taught to listen to authority at the cost of belonging. And so it becomes safer for us to listen to what we're told, to use our mind to construct whatever reality is around us and to make sense of it in that way, rather than use the intuitive sense that is very illogical sometimes, that can be very illogical. And that is grounded in another type of reality that might not answer to time and space. And so loud, confident voices often will overpower this own quiet. And so loud, confident voices often will overpower our very gentle and quiet wisdom. Personally, it showed up. I remember very clearly when I started noticing my intuition as a young adult. I always had kind of sense with people. I would meet people. I would see them. I would need to talk to them. And I would already know this is going to be a person that is going to be good to me. And this is going to be a person that is not going to be good to me. This is going to be a good friendship. This is not going to be a good friendship. This person, something's off. This person, green flags. And I really couldn't tell what it was. And at first, I would give people the benefit of the doubt. And then I had enough experiences to realize, well, look, I could continue doing that. And when my intuition would tell me that these people were not good for me, then pay the price of it, either by having those friendships end painfully with betrayal or discomfort or however, or I could start listening and be okay with making those choices just based on that subtle voice without explanation. And I tell you what, since then, the only friendship I've ever had have been supportive, have been really beautiful, They helped me grow. They've been feeling filled with love and care. And so a lot more connected. And so it made me reflect on the fact that maybe belonging doesn't have to cost. And so it made me reflect on the fact that to belong, I really shouldn't abandon myself. That shouldn't have to be the cost. In fact, that's quite the opposite. The more you're grounded in yourself and you allow yourself to really show up as your authentic self, the more your connections become truer and the more you feel like you belong. It's less of a surface level trying to be part of the group and more of a, I found my tribe. And you've probably done that many times too. I've done it in my romantic relationships as well, where you go through a relationship and then it ends. And then you have this thought that goes, I actually knew all along it was never going to work. And I went anyway. See, if you listen to your intuition, you would save yourself a lot of time and a lot of heartache. I'm not saying that intuition is going to pull you out of painful situations, because sometimes painful situations are actually acting in your favor. But I am sure that listening to your intuition is always the best option. I've learned it over and over again. And so the exercise then becomes to, one, being able to hear that intuitive voice, two, actually listening to it, acting as it proposes that you do, acting in accordance to what you hear. We often dismiss our intuition because of our desires or fears, the desire to belong, to be loved, or the fear of being alone, for example, in that case. And very often those fears and those desires are so easy to confuse with your actual intuition. Your survival mechanisms will take over unless you train yourself otherwise. And so that's why it's so important to really explore yourself, to understand what shows up when you're in a state of urgency, to understand what shows up when you feel unsafe, whether it's emotionally, mentally, physically, or spiritually. And it's so important to learn to cultivate that gentle voice in you, cultivate hearing it, cultivate giving it the space for it to be louder. And so again, it's about figuring out the different quality of voices. Your body speaks differently than your mind speaks differently than your soul or spirit or deeper self, as in your intuition. And you have to understand how they all communicate, what's the difference between them, so that you can listen and act accordingly. Your mind is often set in urgency unless you've trained it to be calm and steady. It's often loud, catastrophic, sometimes obsessive. It often is spiraling when you're scared. It's based in survival and it makes you contract. Whereas your intuition is grounded, it's supportive, it feels very calm and loving. It's really a steady, gentle voice. Now, that being said, it's not because this voice is gentle that you will not feel fear once you've decided to listen to it. Because again, what will happen is that very often your intuition will instill in you the desire to create change. Change is scary, especially if your intuition is asking you to become someone new, if it's asking you to outgrow the version of yourself that you currently are. To the mind, to the ego, this is the worst thing that could happen, because the current version of yourself needs to die in a way so that you can become the next one. The version of yourself that you are now needs to be shed, and you need to become very comfortable with being uncomfortable while you create or work towards becoming that new version that is being asked of you to become, so that you can get to where your intuition is leading you. That's extremely scary. And so, yes, if you do listen to your intuition, just like I am doing it now, working on my book, working on the Sahara project, working on moving back to Europe after having to move here because I was in survival, there's a lot of things at play for me right now that are extremely scary. But fortunately, I have the wisdom, because of experience, to know that life and my intuition always lead me to the best situation, the best outcome possible. And so I trust. There's a few times where I had to listen to my intuition And it made no logical sense. Let me share with you a few of those stories just so that you know what it can look like, or at least what it looked like for me. Maybe you'll find yourself in those. When I moved to Utrecht, that's in the Netherlands, I actually had applied for an exchange studies program back from France. And one morning after a big party, it was, I can't remember what day. And one morning after a big party, it was still quite late. I receive a call from the international office and they tell me, hey, so you've been, so you're going to have to choose between Antwerp and Utrecht. Antwerp is in Belgium. Utrecht is in the Netherlands. I had actually applied for all the UK ones, but they gave me those two options. And I said, okay, can I go research and get back to you? And she said, no, you got to answer within the next 5 minutes. So I randomly picked Utrecht. Really, I picked it because I had never been there. I had just gone to Antwerp and saw the city, and it could have been a good option, but I don't know. Something told me that I had to pick Utrecht. And I ended up having the best year ever because it was following my mom's passing. And so it was a year that really was healing and supportive for me, where I made incredible contacts and friends that are still very close to me now, 20 years forward. Same with Australia. I really had not thought of moving to Australia at all. That was not in my plans. But when I decided that I needed to get out of France and as far as possible, then I just decided Australia could be it. No real reason. Really, no real reason. I had put a short list. I had South Africa, I had California, I had New Zealand, I had Australia. Basically, the only reason why I picked those spots is because there was surfing, rock climbing, and work. But then I randomly picked Australia, and it ended up being probably one of the best decisions of my life. Even the Sahara project that I'm working on now, I have no idea where it'll lead me. I'm hoping that'll happen. I'm working towards it. But realistically, I have no idea what's going to happen and where it's going to lead me. I just know that I'm meant to walk towards that goal. So really what I think is important to understand about intuition is it's not necessarily a destination. It's not necessarily certainty, but it's a direction. It will not give you the steps along the way. It will not give you the full map. It'll just give you the sense that you need to do something. Perhaps your next step, perhaps an end goal, perhaps a project. It doesn't matter how it shows up. But I think what's important is to really listen. And even when you listen, I have to tell you, you might still feel self-doubt. That's definitely part of what's happening for me. You know, even after years of building a practice that supports me through breath work, through meditation, through self-inquiry, through all sorts of modalities, even after seeing how life keeps showing up for me and working out in my favor and having really deep faith that that's what happens. When I follow that quiet, intuitive voice, there's still moments where I question myself, where I doubt, where I stumble and fall, where I pause, where I procrastinate, where I distract myself. Because following your intuition is scary, and it's true for everyone that I know. You know, intuition gives no guarantee. If you ask your logical mind, there is no guarantee whatsoever. And it is not something that's going to happen randomly either. Once you've heard that little guidance from your spirit, from your soul, from your deep self, from God, however you want to call it, that voice that tells you, hey, so in my case, you need to walk the Sahara. Then you have to figure out how. So that's when your mind comes into play. You've got to take the time to figure out the steps. You've got to start putting yourself out there. But what I find is that when you do, then you're also supported along the way. Every time I've listened to my intuition and started taking the steps towards where it's guiding me to what it's guiding me to do, people have showed up to help. Information has showed up for me. Help has come somehow. And that's really when I sit in awe and in this really exciting feeling that I am supported at all times. When I was in Tunisia last, I had no idea what was going to happen. I had this idea that I needed to start researching my roots, the First Nations of Tunisia, the Amazigh people, and had literally no idea where it was going to lead me. I ended up meeting the most prominent historian. I ended up meeting the person who created the Museum of Berbere, which is another way to call the Amazigh. That's a word that I don't like using because it's from colonizers. But I've met all these people that have supported my journey just because I started taking the steps to get there. And so that's something that I think is also important for you to realize. If you have heard that little intuitive voice and it's been scary to think, oh boy, do I need to really do that? Just know the path will show itself to you when you start walking it. Rumi was right. And even if that well-trained, protective mind of yours shows up, it's okay. You'll just have to be brave. You'll just have to challenge it and really be anchored in that gentle, intuitive voice. Because when that happens, when your mind starts telling you all the reasons why you should not follow this voice, your body that is used to being attuned to your mind will start triggering your nervous system for you to be scared, to be stressed. And so you really need to have a strong practice to be able to return to your heart space so that your body gets attuned to your heart more than your mind, so that you get to soften, even though your mind is being very triggered by the idea that your intuition is giving you. And you know what? No matter how scary it gets, what I've learned is that you cannot unhear your intuition. At least I can't. Every time I've heard that idea, and I've been like, boy, here we go again. Then the idea just keeps popping up and it just doesn't leave me alone. I can't unhear it. It becomes so present that I have to act on it. And if I don't, my body will pay the price because it creates friction. Your whole soul wants you to move in a direction. Your mind keeps you in another, and your body is trying to sort out the in between. And so when you're not aligned with what you really are here for, that your intuition is trying to guide you towards, then your body will pay the price. You'll become more tired. You might become more anxious. You might become restless. You'll start feeling disconnected from yourself because a part of you knows that when you're not following that intuition, you really are abandoning yourself. So at this point in my life, I've learned that listening to my intuition is really the less painful path, even if it's really sometimes extremely difficult to follow through in terms of what you need to do to get to where your intuition is leading you. But the price to pay for not listening is so big. You stop trusting yourself in the long run. You start going through life in a way that's disconnected. You just go through the motions. You lose your aliveness. Because the reason why you are in this life is to live it. And if you don't listen to your heart, your guidance, of course, with caution, of course, use your mind to make sure that everything's possible. Of course, when I created Women Make Waves, I did not quit my job right away. Of course not. Of course, I tried and made errors and used my mind to rectify them. That's part of the process too. I cannot stress enough how important it is to use your mind. Your mind is not your enemy, but your deeper guidance that comes through your intuition is what connects you to your aliveness. It's what connects you to really enjoying your life. And when you don't listen, that's what also makes you feel very disconnected. That was the case for one of my clients. She came to me very disconnected from herself. She really doubted a lot of her decisions, especially she doubted her ability to express herself. And she believed that everyone was smarter than her, more capable, more intelligent. So she often outsourced her decisions to the person that was louder or more confident. She really struggled to voice her opinions. And because she was so disconnected from her own voice, it was hard for her to know what she wanted. So she stayed in a relationship longer than she wanted to. She struggled to set boundaries in there. Once she decided that maybe she wanted to stop it and she wasn't too sure, she wanted to study, she wanted to move and study, but there was a lot of doubt in her own choices and in her own voice. She wasn't sure what was right for her. But deep down, she knew something was off. That's why she came to me. And so what we worked on was to reconnect her to our inner authority. It was to reconnect her to her ability to make decisions without a doubt, her ability to know what she wants, her ability to really trust her voice and her thoughts, that she was not dumber than anyone else, and that she didn't need to be loud or to show up in a certain way for her voice to be valid. So we really worked on regulating her nervous system and on ensuring that she started to trust her own intuition, her own intelligence, and her own inner knowing. And the more she connected with all of these parts of her body, her mind, her emotions, her intuition, her spirit, the clearer things got, the easier it got for her to make decisions. And last time I checked, she had been traveling the world. She was freediving. She was pursuing a career that she loved. She had moved back to an area that is close to her heart. So I'm really happy that she is now in a more balanced space, in a more connected space. And just like her and just like me, the more you listen, the easier it is to really use your intuition as guidance system, to know when you're aligned and when you're not aligned, and to not make a big deal out of it, but just adjust. And so how do you hear yourself again? You have to cut through the noise. Overstimulation, social media, the sense of urgency, overconsumption, stress, all of this really it just takes so much space that it's hard for us to hear that voice. And so the best way to hear yourself, to hear your true center, to listen to your intuition is to quiet the voice of your mind. That requires stillness. That can show up through doing less, spending time in nature, breath work, meditation. It can be crocheting. It can be really anything. Journaling, creating a space where you can be heard. It's about making sure that the external noise is cut out for a moment. It's about making sure that you learn to switch what voice is more important in you. And the thing is, when you create that stillness, you have to know that you create a space within you that tells your body you are safe, that tells your body you are now trusting yourself more. You're ready to trust yourself more. And when that happens, your body, if it's got anything that's backed up in there, any kind of emotion or experience that's been stored because you couldn't process it before, they are going to start showing up, bubbling up to the surface slowly and surely. And so as you create that still space, as you start to tune into your intuition, at the beginning, you might also have those emotions that arise that can be a bit scary. But if you allow those emotions to move through, eventually you'll be able to just be present with your inner knowing without anything disturbing it. It just requires you to take some time to process things and to learn to make space for your emotions. You don't have to deal with your emotions when they show up. Just witnessing them, acknowledging them, just being present to the fact that they are here is enough for them to quiet down. And then you can go on and take care of processing them later on. So it doesn't have to happen all at the same time. But I want to be very clear that when you create space, when you create a safe space for yourself through stillness, then things will most likely arise if you haven't dealt with them. On the bright side, your body only shows you what you're capable of handling. So if it shows up, it means you're ready. But that being said, sometimes because we're not used to dealing with our emotions and because we're often scared of the emotions, it can be good to be guided through that process. That's a story for another time. So whether it's a therapist, a coach, whatever, friends to talk to, however you want to be held in this, that can be super helpful to have someone to hold space for you. But that's just regarding processing experiences, emotions that might have been stored. In terms of intuition itself, you still need to have that still space, that quiet space for you to be able to hear it better. And so cultivating a quiet mind is important, as I said. But until you get there, until you manage to have a very still mind, which can take a long time to achieve, until you're in a place where you are able to handle your emotions better, you have processed enough that they don't necessarily bubble up at a rate that is overwhelming. Until you do all that, I think one of the easiest way to connect to your intuition is really to connect to your heart space. So I'd like to guide you in that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a very short practice just to show you how to do this, how to connect to your heart. Which set yourself in a room where you won't be disturbed, whether you're sitting or laying down, that's up to you. And you're going to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths just to settle yourself in your body. And with each breath, I want you to spend some time to create a sense of gentleness. If there's anything tight in your body, allow it to soften. And when you're ready, I want you to focus your attention to your heart space. You can put your hand on it or just be there with your mind. And you're going to breathe into it gently. You might want to imagine a being there. And as you get close to that being, you can see how calm they are. You can see how absolutely equanimous they are. They radiate peace, love, compassion, joy. Continue breathing into that space and into that being. And if your mind strays, just notice and let it go. Don't judge yourself. Don't get attached to the thought. Return simply to that space and to that being. Reconnect to that peacefulness, that gentleness, that compassionate nature, that even nature that knows there is neither good nor bad. And when you're ready, return to your body with 3 deep breaths, knowing that you are always connected to that space. You can return to it anytime you want. Spend more time there. Maybe have a chat with that being. And in your own time, open your eyes. Intuition lives there, in your heart space. It connects you to your deeper self, to that all-knowing self, to the part of you that knows that you're safe at all times, even when you're in the worst situation, that you're guided, that you're supported, even through events that feel like they're the most dreadful ones, the most challenging ones. Life is always working in your favor no matter what. And sometimes it's really hard to see. Sometimes it can take years to move through those difficult moments that have happened, to make sense of them one way or another, whether there's something that you can eventually say they were there for a reason, or whether there was no reason whatsoever. Your intuition is always here to guide you. All you need to do is quiet your mind enough that your heart voice can show up a bit stronger. And when it does, listen. If you feel like you need to understand your mind, your body, your emotions better, then the mentorship might just be for you. Have a look at the link in the show notes if you'd like to see if that's an option for you. In any case, stay open, stay curious. You've got this.